Alright, so everybody, it's King here. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Recording this pretty early evening when this being said, so I don't need to be not too loud or too quiet. I'm just gonna be, try to be as middle noise as possible because I am in my living room recording this. Tired of the fact that a couple people were, sleeping. This is gonna be a long one, as you see by the screen and on the title. I'm gonna be ranking the God of War universe from weakest to strongest. This is going to be a long one, a lot of things to be talked about, a controversial one, and a very weird one, to say the least. But, as always, I want to go ahead and say shout out to all y'all for supporting me. Shout out to the person who made this on the Reddit. Shout out to the God of War community. Shout out to Corey Barlog. Shout out to everybody. And, yeah, I just hope you guys will enjoy. This is going to start at the bottom. Too powerful / weak to scale properly. Pretty much people that should have great hail of capabilities to be something, but you can't really properly assess and account for how strong they are. So, yeah, like simply put, it's a very mixed bar thing to really say where they should scale. Athena and Thoth are two people who push beyond the general credit of a god in their individual pantheons, but they don't have no scaling to substantiate where they are. They both have faced, mixed fear and a claim of still being able to be harmed. Just depends. And Athena was afraid of the Blade of Olympus, meaning she's not too sure what her actual power stand is, and so, she should be powerful, maybe, but this ascent into a higher plane of existence does not really substantiate like any true scaling. Then Hozerberg, aka Hel, because she holds domain over the entire realm / universe of Helheim. She's the goddess of Hell, pretty much. She doesn't really shine any greater grandstand capabilities, but she doesn't seem to be affected by anything that could be fucking over the pantheons across the board, and doesn't seem to be pulled back in power stand, but doesn't have any scaling to really equate over anything. But I don't think it's fair to say that she doesn't have any scaling, because again, she is supposed to be in her own right goddess of an entire realm, but we don't really know what that's supposed to mean. Then Hermes is fast as fuck, but he has no AP. His scaling is very iffy. We don't really have any substantiation of what he can do. And, he is the messenger of the gods. He's their mailman. He's the, god of speed, pretty much. But he doesn't do anything, truly. He just would speed blitz maybe some people. But in truth, he could never really harm anybody to really say, okay, I'm doing something. So, yeah, the last Spartan is kind of a freak of nature when it comes down to a general human. He's been through a bunch of shit, pushed beyond a lot of different unfortunate suffering, and even though Kratos dealt with him with ease, the fact that he was forced to do that and was mixed acclaimed to be able to fight him and, do something and do this on like a very injured and mixed bar state would prove that he has great accessionable amounts of not just endurance, but durability and, spiritual power, but you can't really substantiate anything from it. RIP to him, but that's really it. Then Rhea is the mother of Zeus, mother to most of the gods on Olympus, and she doesn't have any scaling, like in the case of actual Greek myths or any other versions of her, but she's been acclaimed to, be a high status person, and mixed bag of her just being with Kronos is kind of a feat because of jokingly, because kind of a joke tier too, if it's an obvious from the last two on this tier. But the fact that she was with the Titan / God of Time and took all that mass was, to say the least, and is where she's at. I would like to say that, you can't really just put her in no scaling or not doing nothing, I guess to say. But yeah. But then you have Atlas, who is a very mixed bag, person to scale, especially in this type of Saiyan form, where Atlas is chained up, holding the universe, aka the world of the Greek pantheon, on his shoulders, corresponding with the fact of this man not having any true, real scaling applicable of anything besides little shit. He's disfigured, injured, mixed bar, kind of would downform a lot of his capabilities to fight if he even tried doing something, and just is not a realistic person to scale. I have Atlas in his prime somewhere, so you don't have to worry about Atlas is not being scaled, but Atlas, simply put, is not a true, Titan to commonly, precisely actually, say is this and this and this, because like other characters in fiction, his situation, his confines of his power is not even like allowed to be used traditionally, and he can't use it in general form. He just is in predicament to do it, and he doesn't possess anything to properly applicate and constitute as anything unless bare minimum in his prime. He's kind of a very mixed bag feat person, especially because, to be fair, a lot of Titans on this tier list are only where they're at from a mixed capability of what they're able to do to another. And, gameplay, we need even more, information involving them. I'm not trying to switch in between tiers, but if you wanted to, you could look at a little bit of no scaling and see some Titans or characters. And even though they're referenced or shown in lore, you will never get any true strong, scaling to actually properly assess and or properly protest where they should be. The boat captain, could be omniscient with how many times he gets fucked over by Kratos, as being said, and still coming back, So he could put him anywhere, but on a row, boat captain doesn't do anything. This is more of a joke, but to be fair, it's pretty fucked up how many times man has been dissolved of any good peace because of Kratos. I really feel like you should meet older Kratos, a god truly worthy of worship and no longer a whole demon, whole fiend for this being Blacker Force energy. Fucked this man over not once, not twice, but 3 times arguably, and had no care on his face. Aphrodite, queen of Hoenn. Now, Aphrodite has had a rumor or statement about her being able to Mikola people with her seductive charm. None of that is proven or even really accredited, really doing anything more, because in comparison to actual Greek to Roman myth, Shawty has a capability to seduce people and trick them around to basically make her be more a little bit enticing or intriguing to a man or even woman. But every person that she's been with has already had a reasonable fondness and love for her beforehand. And there's no true substantiation or salvage anything different to be said from her in doing that. And to me, Aphrodite simply is just god of love to lust, really. She just be getting piped or laying down some guap ussy, to say the least. There's nothing about Aphrodite to really propose anything different. So the whole idea that, she seduced and mind controlled and basically mind diffed Ares doesn't make any sense, especially when it's a form of a feat that doesn't really substantiate anything, because she hasn't proved or showcased anything beyond just, being more elusively endearing. She can spawn feelings in a person never seen. What is that supposed to mean? She gonna make them lovesick, she gonna dissolve them or deprive them of their soul and being in comparison. There's nothing of true grace of actual knowledge about Aphrodite, because she shows up once in God of War 1 and obviously shows up on a very low pendicular place, you know what I'm saying? And it's all out of the means of getting red orbs and having sex. There's nothing to greater stand for her as a person, you know what I'm saying, in the verse. And she's obviously alive because Kratos, got a great taste of Aphrodite, you know what I'm saying? So that's all that really matters in this case. But joke aside though, next tier is no scaling, where we just have a bunch of characters that, as in the title, they'll have scaling. You don't know that much about. Beasts of no real relevance. You have characters, titans, gods, people of the Greek pantheon, Egyptian pantheon, maybe Norse pantheon, all across the board, who don't have any true actual association of scaling or capabilities. So they kind of would be whatever, and you could never actually properly scale any of these people. And I hope it's obvious as the more we go that none of these people you could actually try to scale, and comparing them to Norse or Greek myth would make it even worse, because you couldn't actually, get a strong rationale or concrete, estimation or capability of what these motherfuckers can do, because they don't do anything. They literally don't do anything. You can never get any proper assessment of their capabilities, skill, AP, speed, anything like that, because they don't do anything. And that isn't to put them down, but they can never do anything enough to really grasp anything different. Even as a version of them or a person for instance, Kronos in God of War 1, like Kronos in his prime and in God of War 3 is here, but it's because they have more proud applicable scaling. Kronos in God of War 1 don't do shit. He's chained up, he's in a prisoner since, he's basically nullified with any big substance matter, and also arguably has no fighting grasp of spirit, and because he was bound to an imprisonment sense and was basically deficient, this motherfucker could not hold any candle or nothing. So again, no scaling, no substance matter in every play doesn't matter for, what they could do or not in comparison. So yeah, just no. Anyway, going on to the next tier, we have the unknown. These are characters that I partially have knowledge of, but they don't have any true reasonable record of scaling, or characters I don't truly know. Like, I know who Cersei is. I know she's a goddess in Greek myth, but she doesn't show up. Don't know who Notos is. Don't know this is Herodias, Pota, Boris, Sirion. I don't have any strong case actual knowledge about them, and they wouldn't hold any relevance. Next, we have mortal slash beast, which are, mortal characters that are like subversion of a mortal to demigod status, or like the above average human, or they're a person of stronger grand scale. And I know this tier is already going to possibly, piss a few people off with this being said, but remember, we're looking at the bare minimum stretch of what they can do. So Kratos would be bottom, even though he's a famed, renowned, very ruthless, peak warrior. His great record of being a warrior and ruthless tides is not anything a true greater credit of this and this and this. And again, like I said, Kratos, a renowned general, very ruthless, is not, of any bigger status stand in comparison, because everything he did as a general, Spartan general, and other qualms and stuff was nothing a big higher scale, and he also just didn't do enough to really stake his really big power flex, I guess, into his first chronological game. The Spartan king, who is mixed hailed to be Leonidas himself, in comparison to Kratos, has been said to be a higher ground stand in comparison to the myths of Leonidas, and historically will be beyond Kratos' comprehension as one of the most elite, proficient, famed, profound case of warriors of Sparta. And as king, even though, to be fair, just because you are a king or in a higher rank or status than another person does not mean you are better than them. This would give a mixed crown of being, no pun intended, better than Kratos. He is the king. The barbarian king, because of his, hails, accolades, and scale in comparison to Kratos as being, a warrior, was going to full on, slay him until Kratos cheated technically and called out for Ares to help him, and the barbarian king got instant killed. He pretty much hacked the system. This man typed in the cheat codes through his mouth. The barbarian king slew dozens of his army, was a ferocious warrior, by different accounts, was held as being able to body disperse all levels of, possibility for, normality in a fight, I guess to say, because he's an alarmingly large man, has multiple boasts of mixed bag skill from what is supernaturally shown, but still reasonably shown. And the fact is that at the end of the day, this dude has all the credit of being just a behemoth of multiple different accolades of just demolishing, flooring, and was able to buddy, the whole aspect of the fight, with Kratos, by how it was mixed shown and cinematic showcasing and cutscenes, showcasing that he was able to not just bully Kratos, but full on, execute and devastate the army of him as well. And again, if it wasn't for Ares, this man would have been dead. Simple as that. Like, he would just outdo him and almost any normal person by his accolades. But in the trolls as a race would just be ridiculous. Multiple varieties, multiple versatilities, being way beyond, what these motherfuckers would, reasonably know what to face. And the trolls, even for their annoyance in God of War 4 and subpar case of, capabilities from our two protagonists in God of War 4, would be one of the more stronger cases of, animals and beasts to a mixed bag interpretation. And only a few of them have mixed scale to this and this person to say, yeah, they are, beyond compare. especially with their size. So again, they would be way beyond what he could possibly be able to do. Then Atreus in God of War 4 is a mixed scalable dude. He, with his arrows and magic and capabilities would be beyond all of them, especially mix of speed and mix iffy surviving blows that he realistically shouldn't be able to survive and stunning Kratos, and he'll showcase that he could take on armies of motherfuckers, dark elves or not. At best, the case, some trolls, a little bit on a mix of his own merit and power. So, yeah. Then you have the Fire Beast, which is a creature of ridiculous magnitude of not just obviously fire, but powers and capabilities, and would be able to possibly, disintegrate everybody below. Then the Olympian Sentinel, because of the magic, durability, weaponry, should body. Grilla, for being able to hurt Atreus a little bit, be a little bit of a problem to her granddaughter, Angrboda. Her size, her magic, her pot should be ridiculous. The Dark Elf King, aka the General, was able to partially, her to sneak up on Kratos and kind of tug a little bit at him. Interesting, like he was able to survive, get out of dodge from him, and kind of have a little bit of half credit of like combativeness to him. So his skill, accolades, his role in his hail and how he's been described, he reasonably should be beyond, especially with his, advantages of flight, power, speed, shit along those lines. Intro Kratos for Ascension would have a lot of the accolades, feats, the Blades of Chaos, and all the experience that makes hail to reasonably substantiate him being able to defeat these people. But the reason why he wouldn't defeat these other people is because he would not go for the multi-trifecta of shit in the games that would reasonably give him credibility in taking them on and surviving them, to say the least. And so because you have to realize that this is going to be a multi-case thing. But when I have characters being intro this, specific this, it's only that specific version for the scale. So because you have to realize, I put a lot of work in coming together this tier list, but this tier list technically was made by somebody else of different reference, and that is what they are referencing. At least I'm taking it as that. So intro Kratos is only weak by the regard that it's just starting the game Kratos. It's Kratos with none of the experience, none of the scaling. It's only Kratos as much as you can really muster to be a proud, assumption of, of demigod. But when I say that, I mainly say that in the sense that his substance matter of capabilities only goes so far. His assumption of, being a demigod is there, but assumption of that is also mixed stretch because, again, he's more akin to being a greater above the general line of mortal. All these people have demigod-like credibility, especially Thrud, who we'll get to. But the rationale for saying that he's on, the greater substance matter of that is a mixed thing, especially how, his different slip and turns of actual racking, bigger feats and scaling and weaponry upon his back that will give him the reasonable, recall and praise of really pitting against the best of the best, you know what I'm saying? But the Persian King, because of his weaponry, skill, his mythological folklore creature beside him, which in mixed bag comparison to a Kratos of a whole different time that is stronger, should be something as, he kind of mixed gameplay, was given a little bit of fight. I can see intro Kratos defeating him, but because of the fact he doesn't have as much experience, weaponry, or again the scaling, you can mix bar interpret that Persian King can get over him, especially with this, Persian Beast being something like no other. And the fact that, Kratos uses it in the Persian Beast being, a decent, powerful creature. So, yeah, pretty much it. But Thrud, right, as a motherfucker that doesn't have that much greater grandstand scaling, the daughter of Thor, daughter of Sif, little sister to Modi and Magni, granddaughter of Odin, niece to Balder, all this stuff. I would like to say, because of what she's been able to do on a greater record, should be able to, do a good, decent record of shit in comparison. But the reason why she's not higher, or like in the case for, the third tier in comparison here, right, to be seen, is, because of the fact that she doesn't have any true reasonable, you know, substantiation of her skill or power, because she doesn't fight anybody of true relevance. She doesn't do anything of big relevance. It's kind of hard to really, proclaim where she is. But the reason why I would even dare put her in Mortal / Beast and put her above these people is for a multitude of reasons. Again, she could be in the third tier to be seen here, which is an obvious, is unknown, or even just no scaling, or at the bottom, being too powerful / too weak to scale. But to me, I feel like she's shown decent credit of like skill. Trace was threatened by her, which is a mixed bar of him just being afraid, even if Atreus has shown bare none, and I do think Atreus is more skilled and better than Thrud and could actually defeat her or even kill her. The fact that she holds a little bit of weight and status to do something, took, playful blows from Heimdall, counting for the fact that she was trained by Thor, has some efficiency in weapons, and has a little bit of his uncanny nature of power. I would like to say she's skilled enough to beat these people. But I can understand experience or height and size that she could be defeated. But the fact that, she wasn't entirely seen as weak to other brothers in comparison, I would like to say that she can be here. But I do understand the argument that Thor doesn't do enough to really be here. But that's also another reason why she doesn't do enough to be here as well. So that's kind of my bigger explanation to, again, say that she did a good, decent amount of stuff to be here, but it's not anything truly applicable to say different. But this is only Thrud and Base with her normal weapons. With Mjolnir, she could be more powerful. I don't know if she's going to be as powerful as her daddy, RIP to the GOAT, but that's just me. Next, we have Castor and Pollux, if I'm saying the name right. Because of his time stone-like capabilities, even though he's not pulling actual time stone-like shit, even though it's a mixed record of like being similar to Hit from Dragon Ball Super, arguably not in the same iffy stand, because like Hit has a lot more mixed probability and perception to being, a guy that actually is blitzing in between time to do different, Shoto acts. This guy is using an orb to basically get a quick step and boost in a mixed position of time to outdo another person. And you more will be akin to just proficiently aim dodging, and basically he's instant transmission. He's more or less using teleportation to get around these people. And with his weapons and what he was able to do to a early to mid Ascension Kratos, I think we'll give him some initiation to be beyond them. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Carrion, his role as Overkeeper of the Dead and scaling to an early Kratos, gets him here. His magic, his hack should be here. Electo, right? Giant ass beast, should be beyond everybody's comprehension, and no one should be able to hurt this beast. The infected Augeon, aka Discount Hecatonchire, should, be able to hurt this creature to the baddest deal with all its limbs and height, size. Then Daemon, the creature of one of the Furies, should be beyond the power of these motherfuckers and boasts. The original Aegeons are able to stand to the Titans and at the same time the Olympians and the War, which we don't know how much that scale is, especially because the Hecatonchires are not put on the same, high scale in comparison to, Greek myths. This would give mixed substantiation that, yes, indeed, they should be of this greater standing power, especially with their greater size. The Hydra was seen as one of the scariest to arguably the greatest beast in the God of War Greek pantheon, and was decently holding a little bit of a candle to God of War 1 Kratos at the start. So I'd like to say they should be over. But Ulrich, aka the Barbarian King, when he has infusion of the underworld's powers and is basically akin to what Kratos was, but for Hades, with his skill, might, accolades, and capabilities, should be beyond them, right? But then Hercules of Ascension, which is not really a true representation of him, but is hypothetically taking that Hercules is, Hercules of the mortal stand. Okay, he hasn't ascended. He's still at a mixed bag demigod status, even though Hercules in God of War 3 and in God of War's version of the Greek pantheon, mixed with Roman myths, has not ascended, has not done the greater grandstand accolades, and is still doing labors in a way. But to me, he is more of a mixed proclaim of being higher grandstand because he was called to Olympus to do a deed like no other. Has all different records of accolades of doing the labors, doing great efficient, work across the entire fight against the Titans. Neiman Cestus and his armor and the fact that in the day that is scaling tied to what he does would give him a greater credit shit. He just has a multi-run, a different greater reception and peak power boast and what he does to say that he reasonably should be where he is. This Hercules is just taking Hercules at the original to base stand of like what his labors and capabilities was, but I could perceive and understand that this Hercules can't really be scalable because taking Hercules at his demigod base stand, aka a demigod version of Hercules that never actually got to the higher grandstand calm of capabilities before, is a non-scalable person, but still. But then you have the Chaos Croc and Chaos Hippo, which would be two creatures that scale to each other and just scale over everybody else, from being way too durable, scaling to a mix holding back and kind of, groggy Kratos, and would just be beyond them. Gulltoper was able to mildly hurt and press Kratos to an extent, which would give him way better mixed bar interpretation of, credit of speed and strength. Gulltoper doesn't really have much scaling, I guess you could say, but that's a little bit more than a bunch of other people. Thalmir, was said to be a very powerful, ungodly sized giant, what is being said. A whole being of multiple massive proportions, bigger than a mountain, is ridiculous in size, has mixed claim of being a guy that could do a lot, but didn't do it because he was a pacifist, cracking of also the fact that, he was unfortunately, blamed by Thor and killed and put out of commission. But the fact that Thalmir's body, cracking again, is also the fact of his alarmingly beluga body ass size. Man is literally built like the ninth wonder of the world, credit of capability. Crickling of also the fact that we're taking Thalmir being, a undead being that is possessed by Freya but is in his own, I guess headspace, even though he has a whole big ass pillar through his head. And when I say a little bit of the fact that Thalmir, little crickling on the idea of that, is the fact that we don't know what Thalmir could do when he was alive. But Thalmir is undead in comparison to the strength gap to Kratos and the fact of what Thalmir was mildly able to pull, like in harm or situational difference. He could literally blow, stomp, body, crush, and just full neg beyond compare anyone else on this tier list reasonably. So, yeah. But besides partially weird statement there saying he could just blow everybody away, but it's the truth. He really could on some Superman shit, wind breath shit. King Hrolkraki was said to be like not just an admirable warrior, king of falsehood, but within his powers and capabilities and the fact that he was able to partially give a little bit of shrug problem to Kratos and all his hacks, and he's stronger than all of his, soldiers and elves and all that, and how, Mimir proclaimed him to be of a very powerful, ridiculous echo of capabilities. I would say that there's a lot of reasonable credit of, him being this high in comparison. But, yeah, for the case of the fifth tier from, first at bottom, scaling, unknown, mortal / beast, all reasonably scaled, it should be obvious that the fifth one, deity, aka the primordials, would be way beyond them, not only from them being conceptually built different, as all these people hold weight in the creation of their considerable pantheon, but Greece, they're on a way outer scale, fucking nether of a whole different power pool. These motherfuckers are like elder gods to these motherfuckers. They are beyond their plane of existence, perception, reality, and again, on a whole nether realm activity of greater A powerhouse and potential. I mean, they supposedly, could disperse them by just a flick of their wrist, by how much whopper of not just existence creation that they can do, by just existence, but reckon of also the fact that their blows do so much of destructive, cataclysmic, grade A things that they could literally, just by existing and pulling different shit, be able to downform every other person in comparison, capabilities, doing things. Even if they have a little partial skill to this or something else. These are whole deliberate, whole pioneers in the grand scale, of God of War. As these four lay the foundations for the greater ants of, God of War, but are still higher people. The primordials are a lot, to say the least, as I'm speaking about them. Dramatic, arguable glaze aside, the fact is that from Chaos, Ceto, Ora, and Uranus, aka Uranus, the grandfather of Zeus, father of the Titan Kronos, and the most powerful of the primordials, the god of the universe, all culminate in the foundations of Greece. Their battles had no time, meaning they're beyond all concepts of possible perception and credibility of these people. They culminate in the bigger buildup of the Greek pantheon's earth in all accounts of capabilities. They brought stars. Time, was only made when Kronos was born, but because of that, they protruded multiple aspects of what makes a cosmology into full culmination effect. They're all four different scale optimist, planes of, reality. They all scales the highest standpoint of those and profoundly and loosely defined all aspects of, possible defection of power against each other. And the only person to stand on top was Uranus, and his ultimate, power pretty much eviscerated them in the grandstand. With one person dying to the other, they then pour, life into the Greek pantheon by their death. And Uranus hold great vast power pool across, all of Greece. So again, like I just said to rescind my statement, the fact that they just follow all their aspects of, creational tears and count of different capabilities of, differences between each other from, them holding bigger station this or that would make them, again, ridiculously on other measures, ridiculously powerful. So, yeah, pretty much it for them. And it doesn't matter how you see these three, even though I'm pretty sure this is how the battle course into full play, right? With Chaos being the weakest, getting dinked on, what I'm saying, by this dude, Ceto, going to bang out with this dude, but this guy was able to give her better nick or something. Then you have Uranus having a little bit of clash with Aura, but Uranus in the end, because he obviously was long lasting and was shown in Ascension, would fauterize and disrespect, all these people in full. And his means of, power station ruled for a great vast deal. He was the original king of Greece, aka the Greek pantheon, for a great constitutional, time for all different type of shit. And in this case, not just by being the god of the universe, would clap them all in full with his might, again, would disperse them in full, and would disperse them, right? This would go about allowing him to overstation his greater grandstand power pool, which would in full fauterize not just everybody in his individual tier, but everybody else. I mean, this man is literally a conceptual cosmic being, and no one here could face that, hypothetically. But this is where we get into the next thing, right? And, everything I just said about Uranus, would just get higher expanded as we go on, which is gonna make the shit more longer. And arguable big talk here. This rest of them would not hold anything bigger in comparison here, because this is where we see characters that would just ultimately disperse that in comparison. So we have the three Furies scaling, reasonably to each other in the godlike tier, aka the sixth tier, with the Galley Bug Lady with her two arms and her priming capability being here. You have the case of the Sesame, right, with her own full grandstand power of illusions and misleading and hacks, and then Electo being the most powerful, knowledgeable, and shapeshifter hacked out person. We have them as a group, which should ultimately full out scale each other. In Kratos of Ascension, having not just the time skip like capabilities, the experience, scaling, accolades, and playing of different grandstand greater power would reasonably outdo them. The Furies also beat the Hecatoncheires, who were people that came from the Primordials, a different record. So Kratos reasonably should be beyond them, and there's multiple scaling that rightfully shows that. So yeah. Then Kratos at Chains of Olympus and base should be right here. Kratos would not be overbeating, on Deimos, because of the fact that this is his brother, taking it in character sense. He would not want to, but even if he wanted to, the fact that Deimos has had proclaim of being a decent record of true strong demigod, the fact that he was able to put the beats on Kratos, to his credit, in context, did not want to kill his own brother, did not want to fight him, but the fact that Deimos was making Kratos look like a red paste of jelly for a second, it was actually putting great vital harm to him, with actually beating him, it seemed like, to death, clubbing him back to back with a big ass fucking Doomfist gauntlet for a right hand. Kraken of also, he has been tortured by Thanatos for a while and survived. He has the blood of Zeus and has multiple records of, being a decently strong individual, kind of a maniac in power. I think even if they were fighting truly all out, head to head, I can see Deimos getting the dub, especially accounting for the fact that, his greater power stand. But this is only Deimos base-wise. He doesn't have the spear or shield, right, which we're going to get into, because I know he dies by Thanatos, especially in his beast form. But, again, we're going to get to that, especially taking in the fact of, obviously, the case of what he will later on do with Ghost of Sparta Kratos, as Chain of Olympus Kratos is from a whole other case of game. And I obviously will show where I put Chain of Olympus technical matter of Kratos, right? Possibly in a greater form, especially with this Gauntlet Kratos, which is Honor Kratos. But we have Kratos of God of War 1, right? Who showcases reasonable case of scaling, greater grandstand of different, acts and accolades, defeating the Hydra, have a reasonable record of, power stand, and like how, his great grandfather Uranus would overscale other people in this person, right? He would disperse these other people by just having greater skills and capabilities with that. So yeah, he would just be able to, multiple times back to back, rack of all trades, eviscerate these motherfuckers, especially taking in the fact that this man Kratos is always seeming to be ceaselessly bloodlusted, so he would just ravage them. Kratos with the Gauntlet of Zeus should be a megaton greater powerhouse than them, taking his armor and skill, should be able to beat them, right? Then you have Persephone, who's only here from the record of her armor, hacks, capabilities, and hail with what she can do. And Kratos, basically at the end of God of War 1 is the subsequent, best of what he was in Chain of Olympus, as like the Gauntlet, Kratos only really beat Persephone to a mixed bag argument, right? In taking the Gauntlet without armor, right? Of this concept design, what he had, right? Through using the environment around her to beat her, and couldn't beat her through conventional banging out means. So, like I basically kind of showcase with Ascension Kratos with the scaling needed, he never really conflict greater A scaled to her, and if it wasn't for the context where they were at, Persephone's arrogance, which is still a reasonable and character thing, I don't really think he would beat her. Again, they're contingent, you know what I'm saying? So if you believe that Kratos, basically being at the end of Chain of Olympus, could beat her, that's reasonable. But to me, I believe that Persephone in an equal environment, taking into account of like her being full ready to fight, should reasonably defeat him. But Kratos at the end of God of War 1, bare none, should just be what the end of Chain of Olympus is, and should easily, with his weaponry, skill, scaling, should defeat her in full. Then Gaia, Titan mother of the Titans, Hecatoncheires, ex-wife of Uranus, is kind of a mixed scale person. She should have a lot of great, proclaim and capabilities of this and this and this to be over this person, but you can't really full say. I would like to say that because of how she's on a different record, the fact she survived blows from multiple possible gods across a great run of God of War 3, within the fact that she was injured from battle. We don't know who that battle was with, but the fact that she survived a great run and accolades of war and God of War 3 are multiple forms of magnitude. She survived a split of the Blade of Olympus, a lightning bolt from Zeus. It has great case of caliber and hypothetical credit of like threat level and stuff, and the fact that this man Kratos was surprised that she lived, taking the fact that conceptually she would be dang near impossible to kill unless you went into her heart, which no one below her would be able or could hypothetically do. So to me, I don't really think she could really be full stopped, to be honest. But the Colossus of Rhodes, not just in height, even though he's not as big as Gaia, arguably because we don't even know really how big Gaia is for what I know. I could possibly try looking it up, but the size, the Gallium-Bume power of Zeus, Kraken, of also the fact of being able to injure a depowered mix, but considerably still with the Blade of Olympus, Kratos, would give reasonable record for the Colossus to be beyond Gaia. Then Thanatos, is in high reveal, status with, the fact that he is the god of death, holds great manipulation of powers, capabilities, and things along that, can shapeshift, fly, has great capabilities across the board, and was a very frightful but also very intriguingly deceptive and diabolical powerhouse of the Greek gods, and is a very mixed claim revered demon of a god. So his deity status is a mix to be respected, especially taking the fact of him kind of being akin to Malekith, to most even broader a great deal of gods and demigods. But even with like his beast form, there's a scale too distinctly different, right? Now I'm gonna explain how like Kratos and Deimos I believe would be more greater in comparison to these other versions. So because you have to understand that Chain of Olympus takes place, if I'm wrong, after the record God of War 1 like shit, right? In case of like, I think maybe time, because no, Chain of Olympus takes place before. I'm not tripping, that's a prequel, because that would be the sequel to Ascension, correct me if I'm wrong. And Ghost of Sparta is after God of War 1, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to get to them. Kratos with the box amp, aka Pandora's box, turning into a giant with everything he has of God of War 1, would just be a better version of that. He has the power to kill a god, what is being said in full. And the reason why Kratos of God of War 1N is weaker is not only because of his size, Kraken, but also the fact that his power subsided and is in him of a greater deal, but he's not as powerful as the greater grandstand boast of stuff is. And we're only taking the fact that it's post that he was made into a god by the Hosogun M, but we don't really see that magnitude of power really definitively scaled. This is because at that time, what he would be in magnitude of power of wouldn't be so different from what was actually shown in the grandstand. So, yeah, to me, that doesn't really show difference. So that's why, these versions of Kratos that are full, greater, amped, powered, and giant would be where they are because of the size makes difference. And only a person, a greater power efficiency, this would be a little bit more, reasonable to be scaled. But next we have Ares, the god of war. Pretty obvious. Made a video with him involving, why the first Golden Order for Ares is not close. Shameless plug. But, reasonably should be here as, he was way more overarchingly, powerful and hold way better advantages and was winning the fight for a great deal. And if it wasn't for the fact that Kratos got an epiphany about the God Sword, Ares most likely would have still defeated him. He had to pull what he had to do against Zeus in God of War 2, which is act like he's ready to be defeated and then fuck him over, right? So, yeah, I mean, if he didn't do that, aka like if he didn't, trick him over and Ares was a smooth brain, then arguably Ares would have eventually overcame all the mixed skill and combativeness of him to actually, get the dub and kill him traditionally. But in Athena, should be over both by the record of her acclaim of being a very sufficient and proficient warrior and all different accolades. She, in comparison to Greek myth, which has been reasonably hailed and referenced, is the better god of war, aka strategic war. She's goddess of wisdom, Trojan War, all different cases of accolades and proficiencies and skill and experience that is way better of, warfare and capabilities than both of these dudes, with her skill being higher measurement. She's high revealed, highly revered for her skills, wisdom, and capabilities, and has reasonably mixed sufficient, style and capabilities to best them. Again, if we compare it to Greek myth and how Athena was perceived just as a whole, and does have a case of acknowledgement for, being greater than Ares in a lot of ways. And the only reason why he's so much more grand scale better is because he has the free whim to be able to just to run through her cities or, territories of random, because of the fact that Athena is forced and bound to not war with another god because of the rules set in place by Zeus. And at the end of the day, gods mixed perception cannot, fight in mortal conflicts, but has been referenced like in actual Greek myth to clash with Ares and defeat him. And Ares is doing all this to get a get back. If Ares really felt like he was so much more better than Athena, to me, he could have ran up on her and fought her and defeated her, but he couldn't. So with that being said, that's why he does what he does. And it's not headcanon that has been mixed, counted, proclaimed by even the record of, Corey Ball and some other people in reference to Greek myth, where it is the case that Athena did beat Ares. That's actually like a mythological fact. And the mythology of Greek, Roman, Norse, and probably any other myth, folk, or legend or whatever will be reasonably, considerably to be compared if it makes sense. I think it makes sense that Athena is over Ares and Box and Kratos. But Kratos with the God Sword, I think, will be reasonably better than both. He was able to eventually fool Prophet against Ares. He reasonably will be stronger and better than Athena with being able to defeat Ares and having greater qualm to do this and that. And I think at this point, from not just having a sword blessed by Athena and the gods, Krakow also fully having insatiable might of the box should bare minimum defeat Athena, but again, they're very contingent. Nyx, though, the goddess of the night, because of her, conceptual stand in the night, kind of otherworldly plane of capabilities, and the fact that, like Helios, she holds aspects of power that are very much so wildly unorthodox, hacky, that I think she would just be a higher plane of God. But the reason why I believe Kratos / Deimos as a duo could possibly defeat all these odds is from the fact that the Spartan shield used by the last Spartan has a great deal of capabilities of counters, accolades, and hacks. It has been used by Kratos to do a bunch of great proficient stuff. Defender Ghost Sparta takes place after all these events, where Kratos is more experienced, holds greater accolades, defeated Thanatos, did a bunch of different things, and will basically be having all of the might that he has in store to defeat these people in there. And their duo, right, would be something of legendariness. And don't get me wrong, Thanatos did kill Deimos, but how he killed him, I'm not gonna lie, I don't even remember exactly how. And it was arguably a misstep on Deimos' part, them taking their experience and going full hard with it, and the fact that it would be against bare minimum people that, they could defeat, especially with Thanatos being a perfect example. Kratos would have full eventually get the dub, even if Deimos does fall. So it's like, can they defeat, you know what I'm saying, both of these niggas at the same time. It doesn't matter if they kill one of them. Can't defeat them both at the same time. And I would like to say bare minimum, everybody on this at the same time, I would like to say no. There is potential for it, but I think it has been consistently shown that when two people are fighting against one, or how many, they are combinating in power, like on some Dragon Ball shit, to be able to be a little bit bigger boss. These two do have great duo capabilities and power, and reasonably scale to each other, bare minimum, on some mixed accolade. So to me personally, that is reasonable qualm to say that they can, defeat them in comparison. And this will be something I'll explain more in depthly, but I'm hoping that's a good example / explanation for why. Next, we have the Titans tier, which at the bottom, we have Kratos of Ghost of Sparta intro. And Kratos, right, is, again, very skilled and accolade dude, going, for a bunch of different shit after the events of God of War 1. His experience, skill, and accolades should be ridiculous. Then Kratos, enraged, with the first showcasing of Spartan rage, going ape shit, should be way vastly more powerful and should pretty much be going on Red Hulk activity. Then at the end, with all the scaling capabilities, I would like to say that he should reasonably be stronger, right? And taking everything and the fact that he would be, way greater beyond what these two boys here, Kratos and Deimos, could do by the fact they would have all of that scaling and relativation a little bit more strong of his disposal in full. I would like to say that, again, that's a reasonable perception of, where he could greatly scale. But, these three Kratos, you could switch them all around. But I think, reasonably Kratos by the end with the blessings, scaling, efficiency, and the fact that at the end of the day, he would just be every technical 4 versions of himself, just all together. It reasonably so would be something to have. So, yeah. Then you have God Kratos weekend, and this would just pretty much be a demigod of Kratos. He reasonably should have all the accolades, scaling capabilities to be here, and this would just be Kratos before he, pushes all of his might into the case of the Blade of Olympus. But then Kratos in God of War 2 at base would just be a little bit upper. It's only because of the fact that he would basically retain all of that power, but on a kind of subversion form. But because of him having, a little bit of bloodlustful, fume, higher range of power within the blades of chaos, as these are the blades of Athena, it has bigger goal and strive to want to kill and do different things. I believe that he could defeat his weakened suspect because we don't know how much God power truly Kratos has. It's more God essence, because I don't know if you guys know this, not trying to, challenge anybody's intelligence was being said, right? As, motherfuckers try to go put me down for my opinion / my taking perception of these powers. But the Blade of Olympus is not only just attack, gods, it can attack demigods in essence. So Kratos was nerfed and nullified to be pretty much a demigod at this point, and his powers was still put into the Blade of Olympus. And we obviously see where I put him with the Blade of Olympus here. But again, I'm going to get more to that, right? But again, there's a lot of context and a lot of things for it. And, higher up, like on my example, Uranus, could and has big dispersed all that people before him and dispersed multiple accolades and confines of, his domain to his fullest means of power trip, as he's a exploding fume of power and stand in comparison. He would be a ridiculous diffing potential dude. He could just, by existing, just full-fledged, just protrude and pillarify his means of power stand beyond all comprehension. Motherfucker is a goofy split of all type of escapades of cosmic warping and gradual power stomping stampede of capabilities. And everything I just said about the great-grandfather of Kratos could be in the same stampede of, Blade of Olympus Kratos. So I'm hoping what I just said gave a good example for why because that's something I feel like some people won't understand. And it's mainly because of Blade of Olympus. I'm going to give for everybody else and explain him, but that's why I don't want to, make that clear. Now, Perseus, right, as a Fire Titan, was able to hurt a caught off guard Helios and do this to him, right? This is just a picture of Helios. I'm going to explain what Helios is. But the fact that he was able to hurt him is very large, very powerful, was able to take multiple different blows and, attacks and survive battles with other greater gods. I would like to say he's decently strong, and he was considered to be one of the more stronger Titans. I can understand he's kind of a mixed scalable dude, but I like to say that he could full-fledged and onward in a random scenario just outdo Kratos, maybe because Kratos don't got the wings of Icarus yet. So, yeah, simple as that. The Fire Steeds, tied with the power of Helios, should outdo Perseus as they were able to body him before and push him back, basically putting him on his back and half knocking him out. So the Fire Steeds, just in speed and flurry of attacks, should be ridiculous, but that's just them. Then you have Helios, god of the sun. His speed with his fire, tied with his an insatiable amount of ammo, to say the least, and how he stood across multiple boards of time as being conceptually in all forms beyond a lot of people's capabilities of, like perception and ideal of strength to endure, as his sun power is ridiculously hot. I'm talking Human Torch levels of flak, of bombs on motherfuckers' faces. Like, this man Helios is a unlimited ammo flop of this destructive capacity and full-fledged porridge of damage like no other. Like, this man Helios, not only from his sun power being able to fill the infinite plane of existence known as Tartarus, like the underworld, a infinite sized case of hellhole, right? Pretty much Florida, right? An infinite plane of vileness he was able to fill. He has a rack of all trades, a measurable pool of power from the sun that can cast out everybody, and not just blindness, but in hypothetical evaporation. And everyone here, overscaling the primordials, who all fought in a entire domain with no time, they fought before time existed, right, would have reasonable skill to that. But the fact that Helios would arguably extend the bar for that, because these people either don't fight at Kratos, who bare minimum should be able to react to that or have a greater stand in that, or would get expand of this speed or this capability and this and that, should win. It's also, this nigga's flying, his actual armor and mixed cack of this man having the greatest possible arsenal up until this point. Because I don't want to overthink this and overtalk this, but Helios, with the fact that he was able to harm and bang out a bunch of different Titans, was very helpful in the Great War, could pull a great deal of stuff. And when, again, I say the slang of him cocking out multi rack of all trades, rapid succession fire, or cacking of this thing of where when he's riding with his steeds, he can drill people in kind of over time with the sun's back-to-back bellowing of strength. And case of what he can do with just flying is kind of unlimited. I mean, no one's gonna take him out of the air. And if it wasn't for Kratos, fucking third partying, I guess you could say, he wouldn't have been defeated. And so he just has multiple possible ways to really slow away his gifts of the sun. And I don't really see anyone stopping him. The only reason why these other people are going to stop him, which I'm going to get to, is for a multitude of reasons. So we're going to get to that. So Kronos, as a being, was said to be the highest credited dude. He's considered to be the strongest Titan and possible power. The true physically strongest is obviously, Atlas, as you see on the top right. And I'm going to get to him. But Kronos, with just his immeasurable resilience of, power, with his resonance of, power being on a booming wild scale of proposition, with him being able to dwarf almost all the credit of the gods, him eating his own children, which obviously as babies is not truly a feat, but the fact that all of these children mix bag interpretation in comparison to Greek myth, which Korobal does reference in some form to be similar, could not break free from Kronos' hold inside him, makes him to be a very durable and ridiculous dude, and makes credit the fact that Kronos, right, was going through a big battle back to back in the Great War, was slowly getting tired and drained. But the fact that he was on this highest measurement of Titan scale is still pretty ridiculous. It's also the fact that, like, Kratos was talking about Kronos like he was the fucking boogeyman. He was pissed as hell at Hephaestus when he told him to go get the Ophala stone, which was the stone that Rhea, the mother of Zeus, put in position of Zeus when he was a baby. And, Kronos like eating kids, you know what I'm saying? So this motherfucker went on his way to go about, eating Zeus when really it was the stone. And Kratos was like, "You sent me to my death!" He was pissed as hell at that. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like Kronos reasonably should be there, and also mixed with, depending on what you think Kronos can do in hacks, I think he'll just be able to catch Helios like a fly and crush him in his steeds. And again, second to arguably the most powerful Titan. So there you go. Kronos from God of War 3 should be the same, unchained, unrelenting, just kind of bloodlusted Kratos. You know what I'm saying? At the end, was full, able to get him with the Blade of Olympus, but the fact that he was able to bench Kratos almost in strength, hold partially a decent record of battle, and, fight against the Blade of Olympus, which is the concentrated power of Zeus, as talked about multiple times across, the Greek pantheon of God of War. Him, Kronos in God of War 3, being a more bloodlusted version of him, should reasonably be that. Young Hades would be able possibly to, best his father if it wasn't for Atlas timing in to help Kronos, his king, his buddy, his pal. That I believe that young Hades would have been able to jack the soul of Kronos or fold him, and best him in full. So, yeah, I believe that he reasonably has the credibility on being bare minimum something of like a very powerful dude, and the fact that he has soul hacks and, reasonably big fast, and is fighting Kronos, his own father, who is the god of time. And obviously in this version of God of War, his god of time stasis is ridiculously bigger than just being a force of nature on some galactic shit. So, yeah, I mean, that's reasonable. Atlas in his prime was able to, bong Hades away, was considered to be the most physically opposing and very powerful Titan, has multiple, showcases across in comparison to Greek myth, and in God of War has shown able to partially give a problem to Kratos, was squishing him for a time. The fact, again, he was able to bong away Hades, was the pretty much top dog in the war. He was the biggest problem, literally and figuratively. He got 4 arms. He's very strong. And yeah, I mean, he's just a beast. That's really all I can say about him, to say the least. But yeah, we have Modi, son of Thor and Sif, originally a case of a giantess girlfriend of Thor. It seemed like in 2018, because Sindri said that they have 2 different mothers, but you could chalk that up to just being a retcon, or, Sindri don't know what the fuck he's talking about, which is kind of funny to think about, but it is what it is. But yeah, Modi, right, is a very powerful in comparison scale dude to his older brother. Take of also Kratos. He doesn't do that much dummy to Kratos besides put him in, a lightning-filled bubble. Because here's the thing about Modi, to kind of more in-depthly explain, as I feel like I've been decently precise with this shit, because, put a lot of great thinking into this, and this is going to be a long one, so I guess I just get used to talking about it in the chat sense. Modi is not super definitive, but I feel like he's shown decent enough. In gameplay, he's shown enough in combination with his brother to be a very powerful Vato. Has great range, great versatility, decent combat training, has a lot of counters to what a lot of people can do. If we take in the fact that at a young age he was able to lift a giant off of Thor that Thor could not lift off of him himself, he should be very physically fucking strong. The fact that he was able to contain this man Kratos, arguably overpower him in just a ranged attack, is very impressive. Obviously, Kratos got out of it, but the fact that he was able to do that for a time and was stinging Kratos a little bit with it is something good as a scale. He obviously was able to push past young Atreus and not feel no effect from him. There's the fact that, like, you know, he's just a very decently strong dude. I think Atlas's best chance would be to stomp him, but I think Modi's demigod lightning, especially being surrogate, like, feel to his own father's power, would reason be able to do what young Poseidon did, which is kind of funny, because I'm laughing just of the ordeal of it. Like, Atlas thought shit was sweet, and he got lightning struck by Poseidon, and he couldn't do nothing. That nigga went to shivering. That nigga started Harlem shaking when Poseidon attacked him. So, yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think, like, Atlas is kind of cooked a little bit. It's not even funny. Like, I think Modi, all he got to do is hit him with a lightning bolt, and I'm not going to lie. I think Atlas might just fall over and collapse. I think the best thing Atlas can try to do is try to smush him, but hey, I mean, depending on how you perceive, you know, Modi's experience with his brother, I don't think Atlas would be anything too different. He might be way too fucking huge, but I mean, I don't really see what Atlas can do to Modi in reality, to be honest. I'm gonna keep it a buck, but yeah, that's pretty much it. And that even goes to anyone else, like, from the, you know, comparative fight with Kratos and scale to scale this, and the fact that, again, Modi and Magni are said to basically be like one below their father in hypothetical skill. Granted, Thor is way more powerful than his kid. It's not even funny, but like Modi and Magni are just like a younger mixed take version of their dad. Like, Modi and Magni are pretty fucking strong. I mean, I don't know what more to say, but, like, that's just the facts of the matter. Like, I know some people might think that's kind of weird because you can't really scale these two, but, I mean, it kind of just gets consistent. Like, they got to be stronger than some of these people, like, bare minimum, I would think. So, yeah, I mean, again, contingent tiers all around. You can make arguments, but me personally, I just think their lightning, their skill, what they've been able to do to a way stronger Kratos are just beyond that. But let's just get back to topic one time. Atreus for God of Ragnarok, I think, base-wise, is just base Atreus. He can't turn into a bear here, right? Everything that he can do in base, I think, would, you know, outdo Modi. I think Modi's lightning might be a little bit much for him, but his defense, impeccable speed, experience, his, you know, fighting IQ, and, you know, great range, to say the least, would kind of outdo Modi. I think Atreus would have a very contingent fight. I know it's kind of weird to say that Atreus would be here, and, you know, I understand Atreus, you know, could possibly be in a no scaling, you know, too powerful / weak to scale, but I think Atreus has shown so many times that he's able to fight even at a young age with people and do damage, has been training for so long, has a lot of great applicable scale, has a lot of great scaling, pair for pair, ball for ball, and has done reasonably great, credible shit, and, you know, playfully was able to outdodge Heimdall. I think he's greater than Thrud. I think he's greater than the mix. Actually, you know, kind of really warps the general concepts of shit of power, actually, because, like, here's the thing. What I was going to full say, because, like, I kind of got caught up when I actually thought about it in a sense, but it was still, like, congruent with what I was saying, was the fact that, to say concisely, Atreus' multiple plethora of capabilities and the multiple arrays of power pool that he can pull in a fight, from his arrows and his magic and capabilities, being able to hurt other people and kind of destroys different concepts of, you know, different magic and ideals and capabilities of that, and fights beings that are multiple times said and, you know, claimed to be more powerful than ones before. I think would give him reasonable substantiation to do what he does. I mean, a man's killing, spirits and different beings of different higher grade A things with his father. He's doing reasonable grade A things with his father. He was able to combat, some Valkyries in general. And, he only gets higher with the bear, because the bear is actually fucking crazy when you actually look at it at a normal scale. So this array and, other wording of a possible range of power scaling and discography of the verse when it comes on to foes of this magnitude and this magnitude is objectively crazy. So this overlay of multiple layers of power that he has reasonable scale to would be very distinctly different than anyone, below, except for mixed bar Modi. But it's only because Modi has something against his father that he could do the same, but he arguably was not stronger than. So I think if Modi caught him, he might be able to get fucked over, because Atreus, with the rule in place that he can't use the bear, I don't think could break out of. But again, he has all these greater skills and accolades to build the best. So again, Atreus of God of Ragnarok, I think, is reasonably here. That's simple. But young Poseidon, because what he was able to do to Atlas is considered to be one of the most powerful, young gods of Olympus, and basically was second to Zeus at this point, is a reasonable guy to put where he is. But this is him without ties to the water, correspond with the fact that his lightning is generated through having half possession of similar lightning and electricity to Zeus, but is all, fling out from, possession of basically an electrical eel of magic. He can't do it on the same spam or rapid succession, just fueling the bar of thundercrack power like Zeus. Zeus is the god of the sky. Like, that motherfucker is an eagle for the hunt, right? We'll make him that. But I think Magni is way more stronger. Not only the fact that he's way more physically opposing, his, Thunderblade, the fact that he was able to actually overpower Kratos sometimes in the fight, the fact that he was the guy big putting in, the heavy lifting and lifting off the giant off of Thor. There's the fact that, he's basically going to be mixed potential to be like his dad in comparison with mixed scale, and the fact that, Magni is a very impressive warrior, and Magni is just beast. I think the only problem he might have is Atreus' speed and Poseidon's experience, but I think the, fan member aspect potential that he has makes him very strong. It's also the fact that, Balder trusted him a little bit more from, how he was kind of, held and represented. Even though he is an idiot in comparison to Balder, the fact is that Magni, does have a great string, greater hail of being a bare none better overarching powerhouse than his little brother in comparison. But them together, I think, is just an inexceptional duo that should beat everybody, from the lightning, the combos, the experience, and the fact that they can pull a lot of crazy shit together. I mean, the boss fight says enough. So I'm going to be honest, I don't really see how anyone is beating that up until this point. Fred from God of War 4, with her magic, skill, experience, and accolades, and depending on the environment for what she can pull, is a very powerful goddess. She can pull a lot of crazy shit. And taking with the fact of, hypothetically, her being on full demon, deathstone, pressure of I don't know, mentally wanting to make anyone that gets in her way suffer. And even though this is not God of Ragnarok Freya, depending on what, tone Freya is in, what type of stance of, plane of mind and power pool that she can pull, she can, contain these people, immobilize them, strangle them, has a lot of great crafty ways to outdo them in speed, and was able for a great time being able to hold Kratos. So, depending on how you feel, with Kratos being bar none more physically stronger than everybody here, she could contain all these people. But to be fair, Freya in God of War 4 doesn't do that much to really sting her too much, but she has been acclaimed to be a little bit more, magically excessive than anyone on this tier to possibly be able to scale to has. So I believe that, she could get around a lot of them. There's also depending on what battlefield we're talking about, she could pull stuff for the battlefield that could fuck them up. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I would like to say that phrase is like beyond them, to be honest. But then, God Kratos, aka demigod Kratos, really, with the Blade of Olympus, because he put all his power into the Blade of Olympus. The Blade of Olympus by itself is a concentrated power of Zeus. That's just like what the Blade of Olympus is. Would be more powerful than most anyone else. It's conceptual erasure. It dissolves the God essence of any person. And because dang near everybody on this tier list is some form of god, demigod, godlike case of presence of being, and titans come from primordials that are literally gods of omniscience, like case of pressure, right, to each other. Like, again, you have to remember the primordials, as they are obviously primordials, are cosmic warping different beings. These beings disperse each other and reform life by just existing. They fought without time. They do all this stuff. And the fact that titans hail from them, which make them in presence be the sense of omniscient case of beings, omnipotence, like type of scale that they have in comparison, and them being stronger and reckon of the same accolades of, make them a whole new list of a whole new call of like just grounded to an extent, but still booming wild bling of like not just flex with the fact of like them being stronger, having greater accolades and greater reign over Greece, but the fact that again they hold a bigger presumptual power stamp and bling of this and this and this, and boasting of strength, and the fact that the Blade of Olympus was able to single-handedly disperse and annihilate them into oblivion. And again, they hail from these deities of gargantuan great A scale, and they don't have no sense of that same bling pressure and presence. And again, this would also make other people way more stronger. That is the reason why Kratos with the Blade of Olympus would hypothetically single-handedly solo half of this lower form of the verse. The only motherfucking reason why he don't beat the others is because of fate manipulation or higher presence of existence or bare minimum scaling. Clotho, Ultrapos, and Lycasis, but especially Lycasis, are all sisters of fate. They can unbind fate. They can pull a lot of crazy stuff. Okay, here we get into the more crazy hacks. They got battlefield removal. They got reality warping capabilities. They live on a whole different conceptual plane. If Kratos did not be in the context of the situation that he was in, where he basically had to kill a boss through a puzzle design, did not, have these crafty, warpy-doo whip capabilities to defeat them, they would not die. There's also accounting for just the pure fact that they have so much better versatility than anyone here. Granted, though, the fate manipulation is mixed to be perceived to be only accounted for in the Greek pantheon. This is where I'm going to need to go ahead and yap a little bit more, but hopefully without Martin Luther King's speed. But simply to say is that the fate manipulation is confined, mixed credit to only the Greek pantheon, because that's where their Hail of Deity span holds, right? And even though I don't have the norms on here because they really don't have any scaling, technically with what mix... Hold on.
Hey, son.
Hold on, wait, man. Yeah, some on the background. I'm recording right now. Let me go ahead and do this real quick. Please don't interrupt. But nice to see you. Yeah, like I was saying, though. So, like, the thing is that with their scaling, you could say that they're different, but the norms, like with the Greek pantheon, are not anything of higher relevance, like stuff in a greater sense. But because of what their capabilities are beyond everybody else, and I believe that they can, pull a lot of crazy stuff within the Greek pantheon, or hypothetically, depending on how you perceive the cosmology of, the verse, with everybody that would kind of just know a lot of what they could do. There's also the fact that, like, again, if Kratos did not have the context that he did, and or the fact that, like, he didn't cheat. Like, Kratos deserves his wins. He's a smart dude. He's a very proficient warrior. When I say, I'm not saying that Kratos is like weak. I'm just saying that Kratos did not defeat them by conventional matters. Also, like, they kind of was being stupid with it. With these other people, or people they obviously see are like stronger than them, I would like to say that they should bare minimum pull different crafty capabilities to outmaneuver them. There's also taken in the fact that, like, Kratos of the Blade of Olympus would be crazy to possibly go to them and nullify their capabilities. But I believe mixed taken of the fact that they would be, because of their hacks, more insatiably faster. They should be mixed bare none a little bit better than them in all around maneuvers and shit. So yeah, that's just me. But Kratos at the end of God of War 2 would not just have, the power of time at his fingertips and at his whim, but would overscale them in full, investing them, right? He would reasonably stand, as in this case, with his weapons, capabilities, and all of his buffs and charms, be able to stand over them, and at this point, showcase to be able to push past fate, as that is a thing that no one else at this point has counters to. No one here has counters to faith manipulation, and the only full way that technically that would not necessarily matter in comparison is, again, if you're from a different pantheon, which obviously some people here are, but it doesn't contradict my previous statement, because again, the proclaim is that, simply put, the possible pressure to be put on you by their other capabilities hold a lot more weight. He counters that. He is actually in some way being able to push past reality warp, such because he has reality warp at his fingertips. This is Kratos with time manipulation. So again, he can just outdo these people. Everyone else above, because we're almost done with this, is like way beyond that. So that's what my point is. But yeah, anyway. Next we have Hilda, right? And the rest of the Valkyries, right? But these Valkyries being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 badass Valkyries, right? They all should reasonably scale to each other. And what their legends have been, said to be are reasonable accounts from Mimir, a very knowledgeable person in all regard. And with these legends and what they have talked about with themselves in God of War Ragnarok Valhalla, accounting for, what the descriptions are, and, how Valkyries are just seen across all broads of, the 9 realms. They are ridiculously powerful. I mean, they're very skilled women, you know what I'm saying? And what their legends have been said to be, with the case of Mimir, knowing the Valkyrie Queen and having mixed presence credibility of this shit, they would have capabilities to not just nullify, allow reality warp on existing on multiple ridiculous planes of, existence, and cracking of being higher mixed scale presence in comparison, as the higher school presence is like a mixed crack of, like, they hold better standing because of where they kind of inherently are held and hold from. They have their battle spirit. They face a great deal of accolades. They pull a great deal of shit across the 9 realms to be where they are. And the only reason why their ex-Valkyrie Queen is not above them is because Freya doesn't have her battle spirit, doesn't have a lot of the capabilities that she has. She's more of a whoppy-doo sorceress, while they have all record of possible great crafty capabilities, not just in fighting, not just in hacks, not just in, counteractions and, feats and scale, but they also have a mixed epiphany to actually all in some way for how, the characters describe them in battle, to give mixed argument or protagonists of 2018 as some challenge, you know what I'm saying? Like a actual somewhat contingentified reckon fight, you know what I'm saying? But again, there's a lot of arguments to say that, you can perceive them in any type of way. But I would say bare minimum, they should be able to outdo almost every of these capabilities. There's also a mixed argument that they should be faster by that mixed credibility. Like, like the Norse saga, not too much in God of War 2018, ridiculously, but, with how characters are perceived and hailed, should be not just only an AP stronger, but also reckon of also mixed bar, being faster and pulling a lot more great sporadic, dynamic forms of fighting. Some characters, mildly get there from what's already known, like, the low multiversal stuff is kind of already confined and consistent here. You kind of get a little bit out of universal and going up here, but I'm just saying it should be pretty like slid to pretty easily that they kind of sing a little more hardcore of something else than them, right? There's also a mix of like, depending on how you perceive in gameplay, when you mess with time, like what Kratos could do, it would not affect them, especially when they are not bound to time. From what we know, hypothetically, everyone else is, and or they don't have a counter to time manipulation. Like their speed is not bound to time manipulation, but the saying of, oh, a resistance to time stop or time manipulation is not actually being able to counter it by speed. And if you are faster than time, technically messing with time the way Kratos does would not help you. Especially because Kratos is not going to mess with time and just fool around with it. What he's going to do is, in character, what he's going to do is he's going to take the time that you're in or pull stuff in the past and mess with you. But by what makes God of War's cosmology what it is, that's not how time works. And there's also like that could not affect them because time doesn't affect them so ridiculously in gameplay when you mess with it and arguably what is shown. So doesn't matter. Like if they're able to give 2018 Kratos a fight, they could probably pull an Alien X and just stop Kratos right then and there. So, no, I don't believe that. But anyway, going on to the full final two tiers, what is being said, we have at the bottom, but topper than the case of Titan tier, the God of War 3 base Poseidon. Poseidon, reasonably, from all scale and accolades, should be beyond the Valkyries, in the case of, people with fate, and all their case of shit. And this is all because Poseidon has full grasp of his power source. Wata has a lot of great infinite pool of hacks and feats and, capabilities. The fact that he was able to decently, run hands with Kratos to a half-stitch extent partially can't affect him and is dealing with a higher noticeability and power, being over the Sisters of Fate, being over the Valkyries, multi-record and people below. And again, the case of, the people of Fate cannot hurt someone on this scale and aspect of grandstand power pool. It's a mixed bag that couldn't happen. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, I'm not contradicting myself when I have the Sisters of Fate here on the bottom right. I'm going to explain that. That's the whole fate manipulation shit. But the fact that he is bare minimum, because you can be over the Scissors of Fate, but the Scissors of Fate with the hacks is just going to counteract that. And we're not going to talk about that yet. But again, there's a multi-stamp of, reasoning and credibility for why. But simply put, again, Poseidon's pull of all this stuff would reasonably get him to a higher crack of, possible openers and just crackness in general, But then we have Hades of God of War 3, who, because of his, hacks and all this other credit shit, would be able to reasonably not just jack people of their souls, scaling to a, start of God of War 3, pretty much Kratos and multi-record of great capabilities and power pool and this and this and this and this and this, would reasonably body, especially when you talk about the fact that up until this point, there's a mixed argument if anyone is super more physically stronger than an older Hades, and there are some arguments, but Hades doesn't just have the whole, claws of Hades to snatch people's souls in this instance. So, yeah, that's pretty much, the thing with Hades and God of War 3. Hercules, unarmed, though, would be way more physically stronger, has multiple accolades and capabilities, even without the Nemean Incessus do what he does. The blessings and charms, after all the labors, should be ridiculous, way more stronger, having way more greater capabilities, banging out with Kratos, still being able to physically overpower Kratos, to surprise Kratos, and I think even without his weapons, did actually way better in gameplay than what Hades did. So I think Hercules would reasonably be up here, right? And because of his strength and tied with the fact of, the scaling, provided would, be able to push beyond them reasonably so. Then we have Hirst and Miss here, who should be reasonably scalable to each other. They are considered to be two of the most dangerous Valkyries, arguably dangerous more than the case of, the Valkyries before. This man Kratos and Atreus had more of a problem with Hirst and Miss, and I would say because of their environment, tied with the fact of, what was seen beforehand, they bring more of a greater stinging problem. They're corrupted, and tied with also being more versatile and more ferocious and having greater ferocity than the Valkyries before, and their hacks will be ridiculous. Them together is ridiculous. Then we have God Kratos, aka God of War Kratos. He reasonably should be, stronger than these people, which kind of seems a little bit of a repetition thing, but like I'm trying to basically explain it at bare minimum scale, so please bear with me. Well, yeah, he would stand of a higher value, I guess you could say, as the fact is that he obviously was highly acclaimed and perceived to be one of the strongest gods up until that point. Because of his god status, such immortality, pulled with also the fact that he has a great vast deal of the power of hope, the fact that he doesn't have any big, pullback in his overarching boast of power and stuff up until this point, as at the end of the day, he again was the second god of war, having all the capabilities and vernaculades and stuff all up in it. If he wasn't nerfed such Drendavol's greater god power, he was stated that he could do more. As Kratos with the Blade of Olympus, full concentrated with his godly essence, makes Zeus's power was very powerful. So if we try to time such backtrack on that with God Kratos, he should be reasonably way more stronger. So I think, it's a very debatable thing. We haven't seen him on screen fully do what he can do. He kind of arguably is featless and mixed scalable. So I understand where this might, be one of the other few occasions where it's like, you can't really scale this motherfucker. But I think you take at bare minimum how he was said to be, how he was seen to be, and the fact that any other god in comparison was not as strong as him bare minimum, that Kratos would body them for the most part. But then Hercules of God of War 3 is here because of how he stood to God of War 3 Kratos at, a good lower part, right? Don't worry about that. And he, simply put, was just beyond, a lot of what he could do in strength. I mean, from the fact that he was almost able to overpower him, bang out with him, the Nemean cestus are able to hurt, big parts of different environments of Olympus that have been said the most strongest material in the Greek pantheon. They're able to hurt Zeus. Hercules does say to have mixed, physical strength near Zeus, and he has a great deal of capabilities, in comparison to him like that. I would like to say that, he should outdo, he should counteract Hades' soul hacks. He should beat the dog hell out of, his unarmed self. And Hercules is just ridiculous. I mean, the powers that this man has from just the Nemean cestus. Not only does he have exceptional strength, shock waves, great experience, great versatility, decent armor, great reaction speed, and has done the 12 labors. So again, he has a lot of scaling to be had. Next we have Heimdall, who is a headache to try to scale, but he simply put, because of his precognition, super speed, hacks, kind of versatility, should bare minimum scale beyond him and put him down. So that right there should make him be, reasonably beyond, all of them, right, up until this point. But it's just the fact that, he's kind of confusing because, Heimdall can kind of just endlessly look into the future dang near with precognition and learn how to best him. But then you have Hyatt, you got hacks, you got this, you got that. Listen, I mean, he's the Watchman of Aesir for a reason. Odin trusted him. He trusted him with Gjallarhorn. Everybody talks about him as being a very, annoying and kind of progressively through the game, you see that he's not going to be a very easy person to count out and best. So I would say the most solid possible conclusion to say here is that, yes, Heimdall can be one of those people that you can't really give scaling to, and he's a headache to scale. But the fact that everybody again talks about him as being a guy that is going to be one of the most unsolid fighters from what we know, because he's never lost a fight, a hand has never been put on him, he's never had a threat, and taking in, his arrogance and his impulsiveness, it's a mixed perception, how he could do shit. But like I said, not to keep repeating myself, the fact that everybody talks about him as being a guy that you can never really full seasonally get around. He's like an unorthodox person. He makes no sense. You can't rationally regulate him to one thing to another to a person. Maybe with that, because he is a very mixed floppy dude person. But because of his hacks, what he was decently able to do to Kratos, what he was able to do to Atreus, to Thrud, and mixed counting for what he can do to other people, I would like to confidently say that Heimdall is one of the most ridiculous applicable people to others, but has a great credit and also fame for being one of the most wild manner of, gods to scale and see. So, yeah. Next is Bothorn. He was able to rip through hiss and miss, right? And my mom's getting back on. God damn. You good? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Oh, she saw there was mom in the background. All right. Just so you good. There's some water on the right side. Okay. Mom's got a little bit sick. My mom's a little bit tired. She got back from a ride. But anyway, to continue about what I was saying, right? Bothorn, he was able to rip through, the Valkyries, was able to give a Kratos who was mixed perception, going all out. He didn't know what the bear was. He didn't know who it was. So the fact that Kratos is going all out and the bear was decently able to stand to him, and the bear was able to push Kratos off for a second, I just think the bear's going to fold everybody in a ridiculous way. It's a freaking fact that's a bear raging on hemorrhoids, it seems like, beyond compare, doing this. The bear's just a big bulk tank of crackness like no other. The fact that this big Hoagie the bear, only you can stop forest fires, is going to be rampaging for this entire tier list is kind of crazy, but reasonably so. The only problem is, speed, how, some hacks would interact with the bear, but the bear's supposed to be, so much stronger and durable. I don't think anyone's going to be able to hurt it up until this point. I think Heimdall could try to severely cut and hurt Bothorn. I think you can argue Heimdall could beat Bothorn, but I think Bothorn, if the fight keeps big lasting, could eventually catch Heimdall and just do what, the Draupnir spear did to Heimdall, but just more brutally. He's going to fucking pull a Goro on this man, just gouge his chest in and rip him apart. It's that simple. But yeah, you have the Hempo camps as just a race because they decently were able to, put the pressure on not just Gaia, but also Kratos, have ridiculous range and vacuum of power. I think would just overlay too much people and pressure beyond compare and would defeat them reasonably so, right? That would kind of be a problem for them. But then you have Poseidon of, full body Hempo camps, which should reasonably defeat everybody to this point, not just having unlimited power, ridiculous boaster stuff, and only was mixed bag getting defeated by his own stuff. And, at the start, God of War 3 Kratos, I would like to say proudly and fully that he would be beyond compare for anybody coming up to him. It's that simple. But as soon as a fake get beyond, not just because there's so manipulation, right? Possibly with the count for the fact that together with their fate manipulation and the fact that they're a trio, they would be able to, dissolve you with any acts and stuff. Your soul pretty much is bound to their control, as they can dwarf, shift, and reform anything to their command. And they're just a ridiculous case of thing across the board. So, yeah, if you're from the Greek pantheon, you're getting bodied most likely. And it's only in the Greek pantheon, which is hypothetically where all the power of these people is getting taken from, tied to the fact that them together are ridiculous. And they have a lot of hacks that I think would just be kind of unsatiably hard to really like say and define, to say the least. Then we have Kratos, kind of base post God of War 3, a fallen god, which should be able to best fate, best them in full odds, use the Blades of Chaos to their nerf extent to defeat them, and should push beyond them, and reasonably should defeat them in the grandstand. But I could definitely could see arguments that Fallen God is kind of weird to scale, but I think Kratos at this point was just half, mixed interpretation, like in a conflicted nerfing state, but I don't really know. But full Blades of Chaos, Kratos, full rate of fight, and Wreck House, I think is very solid credited person to say is over. It can do everything I said that his base form here could do, but he is now full locked in with his power. Young Zeus, though, because of how he's been seen across within his younger state, the fact that he was the main turning tide for the gods in the Great War, his power, his hail, and young Zeus is pretty cracked, as has been shown in the case of, flashbacks to different things, and his range and versatility, and the fact that he's always been stronger than everyone. That this is the strongest Greek god. Yeah, he would just best everybody. And, he counters fate like Kratos. I mean, the fact that you stand to somebody like Kratos and there is a time where he actually is able to best them. And it's even the fact that Zeus isn't even like, in a way disturbed by him fucking with time to come back and get it back in blood. He didn't care. And even though this is young Zeus, the fact that he has all this high scale shit, right? I would like to say that he reasonably should be here. Now, the reason why Kratos of God of War 4 is over is simply because of the fact that, again, he, even though starting out would be very rusty and not ready to fight, the fact that he would just be able to best all these different record of odds and comparison and different record of shit, I would like to say he would have the reasonable credit to be able to beat him. And unlike with the two others, he doesn't have the mixed experience of his other shit, mixed scaling to another person, and have credit of just, having the capabilities that he does. And this is getting him starting out, and, the Leviathan X doing all this different type of shit, which, reasonably so, would get him a little bit more higher. And that's something that this Kratos don't got. And, I believe that he would just be able to defeat Zeus. There's nothing that young Zeus could do to really defeat God of War 4 Kratos, but I could see him doing a lot of stuff by himself that could defeat others. Like, I don't know, killing them, immobilizing them, striking them all to heavy hell. I think one great gigantic bomb of the lightning bolt is probably frying everybody else on the tier list, while Kratos has either taken that stuff, pushed back, or done more. There's, again, also the fact that he is younger, which doesn't mean that he's, stronger and better. It's just like, I believe that he would use a little bit more of his bare minimum, power pull shit than what he did in other planes. But it is what it is. Next, we have young Zeus with the Blade of Olympus. I already talked about before. This is concentrated power, and this should wipe the floor with everybody else. This is his weapon. This is his capabilities. That's simple. Now, Kratos with the Blade of Olympus, pretty much being start of God of War 3 Kratos, reasonably should put him on the same level, but only mixed with the fact of everything that he might have at this point tied with the Blade of Olympus would reasonably get him over. And I do think that is where the credit of where arguably young Kratos is stronger than like 2018 Kratos, bare minimum, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, but pushing on, we have Kratos post the Styx, which is going to be, a Kratos who reasonably should best all these different odds and have these capabilities, as being said, right?
It's a beautiful day. Ride your bike and get your gift card.
Exactly. We'll set it up together. Got this new bike trip. Yep. Man, for the fact, fine, but I got, not in the case of like, normal ride, I'm talking about like a motorcycle like thing, but yeah. Anyway, I want to go ahead and full articulate on the case of, Kratos post Styx. He would be besting all these people with having the Blade of Olympus, and same time, the hypothetical scaling that he will later on get, but it's the fact that he's literally everything but regrown from the power. So I mean, yeah, I would like to say he should be this way because he has the bow of Apollo by this point. And I don't know if that might matter too much, but the bow of Apollo is pretty cracked. So, yeah, that's all I'll say. But then this is him, obviously, with the soul amp on the left after defeating Hades. So he should be a lot more powerful. Pretty self-explanatory. Balder, no curse, I believe, should be able to get around Kratos with everything that he might have in comparison. And, he no longer has the time manipulation shit and hypothetical from those different points because that was all used up because you could only use it one more time. I didn't kind of explain that because, I was so much on just the wild form of versatility he could have. But simply put, like, he can't do that stuff no more. And Balder, not being cursed, is more exhilarating. He takes the fight a little bit more seriously and has more boasts of different crazy powers and capabilities. So I would like to say that he bare minimum should defeat, and the fact that he has a little bit higher scaling chain, arguably. But in Sigurd is, one of the most powerful Valkyries, and she's very powerful, very experienced, has everything that her lower Valkyries have, like all together, and more better than, and still said to be stronger than, did help out a lot, has survived some crazy shit, and has showcased to be a very wild range of a shawty and creative capabilities, right, in her own right. So, yeah, simple as that. Then you have Kratos / Loki / Atreus and God of War 4 as a duo that were able to defeat Sigurd decently, you know what I'm saying? I guess you could say together, even though there's a big argument that Kratos, could have bodied Sigurd by himself. He ripped the wings off of this shawty and he bested her, right? And the reasonably contingent, they beat Balder together and both scaled reasonably in a duo sense. But Kratos, by the end of God of War 4, right, with the Blades of Chaos, all his experience, everything you can do in God of War 4 to up this man in hacks and capabilities, reasonably should have him be over a duo of both of these people. And I think that obviously he can take out his own son. And I think obviously he can defeat himself that is at that point in defeating Balder and has every scaling chain to possibly be had. So, yeah, I think that's reasonable. But then Jormungandr, when he's young and the scaling he has to a mixed bag, younger or better Thor, is way beyond him. And, this man Kratos doesn't have true confidence scaling record to be said to be able to be on the same level as Jormungandr. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that Jormungandr, young or not, should just be beyond Kratos because it goes for a lot of people on this tier list. I don't see what niggas doing to Jormungandr. I'm going to keep it a buck, bro. But Balder will be different from the fact that he showcased some way to beat Jormungandr. We don't know how, and obviously there's context, but Balder being cursed, number one, will make him dang near unkillable for a lot of people. The fact that he can pull a lot of crazier dank shit than any other person, having all his capabilities of no curse Balder, not to the same hefty sense, but way more powerful, should best him. He did knock out Jormungandr, right? Granted, where Jormungandr cannot see, Jormungandr was not trying to fight back, because if he fought back, he could have possibly swallowed Kratos and Atreus. And I do know that obviously, people got the Blades of Olympus. They got these hacks. But we don't know how it would work on Balder. Balder is reasonably more stronger. And I can see Balder, with what he's been able to do and take on, best him. And even though his god essence could be destroyed, there's a mixed argument for me replaying God of War 4 and how his case of, curse has been hailed, that if you really perceive the Blade of Olympus in full cuss being magic that unless you're stronger than another, on that type of lower scale, Balder should bare minimum, because of how he's able to do shit most of the time in the fights, be stronger than. So because to me, it's shown narratively that if Kratos did not have Atreus with the mistletoe, he couldn't beat him. So, yeah, unless the same thing happens again, I would like to say Balder, bare minimum, is stronger. Again, he's a very contingent person in this tier list, but I mean, I don't really see how anyone else could really take him out. It's that simple. Next, Zeus of God of War 2, right? And Zeus, in God of War 2 has multiple times shown he's leagues beyond Kratos. He wins the fights most of the time contingently, has boasted great speed, hacks, capabilities, is way more experienced, has greater measurements of hacks and capabilities, and doesn't even need to play with Olympus to fully best Balder, with knocking him out, being beyond his different, comparison scale, having greater, ratio of this and this and this to possibly, base a lot of your scaling chain off of. And, you know, Zeus is way built different as a being to where he could just father and flop this man Balder out of commission like no one else. So, yeah, I just feel like Zeus has showcased consistently in comparison to be beyond them when it comes down to that stuff, especially when it comes down to the hacks department. Giant Zeus would just be everything I just said, but on a way bigger magnitude scale, as the giant forms of people are the same arguable scale as their smaller self, but a little bit more stronger. So he would just keep growing and just dominate, and is like Ares, the size of a mountain, but arguably at this temple, it's over clouds. So you can say that like Zeus is actually bigger than everyone else. And that arguably goes for some other people because Atlas was bigger than a cloudy plane of existence. So, I mean, I'm not going to lie, that's kind of crazy. And, that size doesn't entirely matter. It's about the scale. But the fact that he is of that magnitude, I do think he would best. Now, granted, the same shit that Kratos did to him before, downgrade his giant form, taking the fact that Zeus is still Zeus of God of War 2. And if Kratos did not pull what he did before, I still think they would have been fine. There's also a mixed bag argument that Zeus, even in God of War 3, has showcased that he can still keep fighting after all that. I mean, he has this back-to-back resilience. Zeus does not give up, bro. And, yeah, God of War 3 Zeus should be the same shit. Surtur, God, he's, hailed and holding primordial fire and being one of the cause and effects for stars and all this other shit in the cosmic plane of his own universe, and being a very vital person in different fights to be had. I would like to say should be reasonably here, but to be fair, he's also a guy that kind of is a mixed bag, scalable. But with his fire, his hacks, his strength, the fact he was able to hurt, Kratos a little bit, has great threat level and different shit, and the fact that Surtur showcased capability pretty much like Dr. Manhattan, this man Kratos and Atreus away, and has been, hailed to be a very powerful dude. I mean, Surtur was a big help. I mean, Surtur was a guy that he could have defeated Odin by himself. I have Odin, way higher for reasons I'll get into, but yeah, I mean, it's that simple. Surtur is just ridiculous. Now, Freyr, with Ingrid at his skill level, his capabilities and hacks, arguably with Ingrid, I think would reasonably be beyond. This is because he's able to hold back a higher version of Surtur's power. Him having mixed credibility on being near Freya's level, right? He's a very great swordsman. He's a very great powerhouse and a very efficient warrior. And, is a very dynamic fighter. You know what I'm saying? Basically, then this motherfucker like the fucking white Power Ranger of God of War, bro. He built different. I ain't gonna lie. But that's pretty much it. Now, Zeus with the Blade of Olympus rightfully in his hands, right, which is just supposed to represent just Zeus with the Blade of Olympus. Don't let the picture fool you. It's supposed to just be Zeus with all the power to be claimed. And with the Blade of Olympus should be able to nullify everybody. Not just the fact that it's his concentrated power. It's him using it. And he has showcased capabilities with the Blade of Olympus that no one else has done. Not just the fact that he made it. The fact that he's just the god of the sky with this shit. I think he would just fold everybody. Now, Freya's beyond because of her tapping a little bit more into a warrior spirit, this, and capabilities of that, are mixed scaled to be something of threat to Kratos. And, obviously she's a lot more demented and crazy woman at this point. But there's a mixed bag argument that with all her hacks and versatility to be had, and take it in the fact that everything about God of War 4 Freya can just be amped to heavier craziness here. And you can consider this to be Freya, basically without getting her Valkyrie spirit, aka Venades, right? Which is pretty much just Freya for a decent record of the game. I would like to say that she could beat Zeus, but I can see an argument how Zeus could defeat her. This also goes for a start of the game, Kratos, from his scaling over a bunch of other people, everything taken into play with God of War 4, training, credibility, and this and this and this. And, I know it might seem contradictory, right? But believe me, I do believe that God of War Ragnarok start Kratos is better from the fact of him scaling to a holding back Thor to an extent. The fact that he's went for all this training, he's way different in comparison. And I believe with his stuff that he has, he should bare minimum be able to either clash with the people below, take the weapons of, best upon, defeat, or fully capitalize on defeating and taking in his hacks with a more experienced Kratos. I believe that, he should just defeat them. But I can see, I don't know, like, how could he get around Jormungandr? I explained how other people should, he should be able to defeat Baldur, do what he did at the start of God of War, and, subsequently defeat him to an extent, or I don't know, try cutting his head off, because again, he's more experienced. He would just have a similar battle that he had with Zeus. It would kind of be unrelenting, but I believe that Kratos would get around it, because you have to understand that every better thing that Kratos will do will just happen fighting them. Like, I don't believe that Surtur's so much more powerful than Kratos. I just believe this shit shows that he should be more powerful than the Kratos that's not as experienced. Because Kratos and Atreus did recuperate. I believe that if Kratos and Atreus at the same time fought Surtur, which is obvious, they would be able to give him the wet work. I'm not going to lie. And if that sounds retarded, that don't make sense, all right, bro. But again, that's just how I feel. That's how I feel like the scaling showed it. And I think everything that Kratos has done, he should just be able to get past it. And, like with this scaling to Freya, I believe that they both have reasonable scale and a claim to be able to best a lot of these odds from what they have the scaling to, their speed, their skill, weaponry, all that. And yeah, pretty much it. But Vandis should be stronger than Kratos at the start. Kratos didn't know it was Freya, and he was arguably going all out, like he was fighting to kill or bang out with her. It's only when he realized it was Freya that he kind of, was getting cooked and held back to a very severe regard. So with that being said, right, Freya, has great capabilities and all that to reasonably put down Kratos from her hacks, bow, skills. She has her Valkyrie spirit, which amps her to a ridiculous scale, and in this state would be, reasonably stronger than Sigurd. I would like to say that she should be able to defeat him, unless, he realizes that it's Freya again. I don't really know. But there's an argument that, I don't know if she would kill Kratos, but she could have possibly split his neck and kill him, and that would have taken Kratos out for the time. But again, it's contingent here. But then we have the man, the myth, the legend, Kratos of God of War 3, who, again, is a top tier Kratos, as I've said before multiple times over. But Kratos of God of War 3, in all regard, with his weaponry, capabilities, speed, hacks, all that type of shit, and scaling, should be beyond everybody here. It's only until when it gets to the higher whoppy-doo pool of scaling where it's a little bit ambiguous, to say the least. Well, Ymir, just by existing, should be beyond all qualms of, these niggas' reality. And no one until this point technically is really on that level, because Ymir, just kind of by existing, is a mixed regard of, like, almost being like a beyond multiversal being. Like, he literally, by existing, protrudes the multiverse. He was broken down into making a multiverse of multiple different concepts and creations and bard nuns and their individual ways of cosmology. So Ymir, I think he kind of like just Galactus everybody below him. But obviously he was defeated with Odin's family, V and Vila, who helped in, killing him. So I think they should, like, at least on some Viltrumite shit scale, like 1/3 to Ymir. and both reasonably should defeat him. And in comparison to Norse mythology, Vela was more of the warrior. He was more of the hunter and tracker. Garm has no soul and can't die and has a lot of crazy hacks. I don't put Fenrir here because I feel like Fenrir is a very janky character to put. So he's the one character I kind of actually forgot about. But if you had to know where I would put Fenrir, Fenrir probably, I don't fucking know, would be like, yeah, I don't fucking know. I think maybe like here or something like that. I don't know. I don't care. Because Garm is the more applicable scaling, right? Because arguably Garm is just everything Fenrir is, but Fenrir can't do because it's not his personality. Garm is a ruthless, unrelenting, unyielding devil, right? Motherfucker is a chupacabra more than a wolf, right? Motherfucker just doesn't stop. And unless you're a guy on a different conceptual plane or can pull things that another fucker, you know what I'm saying, can't, another motherfucker on a different scale like shit could possibly body him beyond compare, and they would just get this motherfucker battered in or knock him out, which I don't know that can even happen, but consequently should just take away his capabilities to do a lot of shit. So yeah, that's kind of how it is. And mix, like, if you say the soul involves the conceptual ratio can't work, and it's kind of that simple. Next you got Thor, pre-Mjolnir, like shit. And Thor is a ridiculous motherfucker, to say the least. This is the concept of Thor having Mjolnir, right, at a younger stage of his life, and this motherfucker having it at a great deal of time in the matter for his mixed scales and hails. And it's pretty much Thor before he became the Thor of God of War Ragnarok, basically being young Thor. And Thor having Mjolnir did a lot of crazy shit, and just doing what he does, fighting a younger Jormungandr, at the start, but being, more over him, even though they did have a contingent fight, will make him be better. And he's pretty much everything more than everyone else. And he has been considered a lot of times to be basically second to Odin in the case for Asgard. So, yeah, I would like to say that again. Thor would be over. Nidhogg is pretty much everything Garm is, but a little more crazier. The reality warping, the, distortion of the 9 realms, the teleportation, the Bifrost, the gigantic size, her scale to Kratos and Freya is ridiculous. And if they both weren't there and Nidhogg didn't have the situation at hand, I believe Nidhogg would have killed one of them, or at least would have defeated them entirely. And it's only because Nidhogg was getting pressurized by both of them that she was going to leave. And for a great deal of the fight, she was beating the dog shit out of Kratos, bro. Like, don't get me wrong, Kratos was doing his thing, but I do think Nidhogg, at least that version at that time, is a little bit stronger than, bro. I ain't gonna cap. And, she could pull a lot of shit to Thor and the rest of this thing that I don't think they could actually, stop. And she has greater power in the multi. I mean, Shorty's literally like an overseeker of the 9 realms. So, yeah, there you go. Young Odin, killed Ymir and has a lot of hacks and skill and rack of all trades that he could defeat, everyone here. And no one really scales to this hypothetical young, not on the same accolade Odin, but still very powerful Odin. Then Odin mixed with his 2 brothers as a combo should just wreck everybody in full throttle. I believe Kratos and Loki as a pair, especially with Bolthorn and what they've been able to do at this point with their weapons and everything, should reasonably defeat, Odin and everyone else as a group, as what they've done to defeat Nidhogg, Garm, possibly Odin later on, and even Thor, I think, could work. It's just more about depending on how they want to really play it. But I believe they're, undeniably cracked beyond compare duo, efficiency, teamwork, experience, and proficient in all arts of Jumpman, fight back nigga, will be full glorified. I think the only real contingency is Odin and his brothers having a great accolade of being able to 3 stampede, Ymir, and multi-collage of ass beating and eventual, spearing of his guts and having that, leak out and basically make different forms of reality, which is just still crazy. But yeah, Jormungandr, though, has always been held and seen to be way stronger, especially when he's older, and has reasonable acclaim and amount to, the highest record and measure of power and capability. So to me, right, I think, that puts him reasonably above, tied with his size and, just what he can do. I would like to say, yeah, they couldn't do nothing against. And, arguably at this point, which is going to explain Thor and the rest, would still scale up more highly, commonly, powerfully, and all that at a higher regiment of, scale. Thor, first fight, is holding back and showcases not that much care and all different boasts of greater strength and capabilities than any of these people. I think Thor could mollywop almost everybody with his greater experience, accolades, and feats in fighting, especially like against Faye or something. And he just has a lot more better presence of this and this and this than everyone else. And that's pretty much why he's like above all of them, even if you want to say the credit of like, the stagnant between Jormungandr of old, right, against Thor of young, which I put older Jormungandr obviously above because of the experience and the hail and the scale and what he's been able to do. But I think Thor showcasing what he did to Kratos and how he's been able to do shit in comparison to someone else would reasonably best and fodder and fold like an omelet in the grandstand of shit. So yeah, pretty much it. But then you have Starkor, right, who was a giant of multiple limbs that Thor never even dared fight because that's how powerful he really was. And I would like to say that if he's supposed to be pretty much like the dang near most strongest giant besides Ragnarok, then yeah, he should defeat everybody. But to be fair, he doesn't really have any documented skin because a lot of what is said about him is theory, not very applicable. There's a lot of context that is not very explained. We don't know why he was so powerful or like what this is and that. Well, they don't technically entirely matter, but yeah, the scaling's kind of in the pudding, to say the least. But then you have Thor of the final fight, aka Bloodlusted, who should body boomingly way different and not just power, collision force of his power shakes all of Asgard, is colossal. He's a behemoth, the red jolly giant of the most ridiculous fame, Blacker Force energy hands. He's just ready to full-fledged cock motherfuckers into outer space with Mjolnir. This man is a glorified behemoth, big Brock, demon. You know what I'm saying? I mean, my man is a glorified just dominator in the fight and multiple credit shit when he's fighting Jormungandr of young. But the fact that this Thor is way higher grandstand than others and what he's been through in the scaling chain, I would like to say Thor, bloodlusted, full ready to fight, full robust case of matter of power would outdo him. You know what I'm saying? Faye fought a Thor that was drunk, but was said by Kratos himself to be better with, the axe, a better hunter, a better, fighter. She fought beautifully and all different credit, cool shit. She said to still be stronger than Thor, which, would pretty much mean the Thor in general. And has a lot of scaling. She's the greatest fighter of the Jotnar. And, she just is a very, crazy, cool, interesting fighter. A lot of from Great Hail. I mean, Shawty's legit the axe woman of, the Norse pantheon. So simple as that. Then you have Kratos by the end of God of War Ragnarok. This is pretty much saying like post Ragnarok, to say the least, Kratos. Then you have Freya, who has showcased reasonable, higher scale than Kratos, as she in some occasions is doing more in the fight than Kratos, was arguably physically overpowering him and besting him in their fight with Venetis, was doing a lot more greater deal as a whole overarching, fighter in person in comparison. There's tick of also the fact that Freya in the fight against Gná, which is reasonably post after God of War Ragnarok, does more against Gná than Kratos. Kratos kind of needs help to fight Gná a little bit more, and he's not fighting her on the same level of pair for pair, ball for ball, bang for bang. Freya is full in the fight against Gná. Kratos is a little bit stumbling, and I know somebody might get on me for that. I mean, people might get on me for like my entire tier list, but again, I probably believe that that is a reasonable taking of, the scaling to be had, and again, I'm not trying to say Kratos is not contingent, but the fact, again, Freya is a lot more better, to be fair, and the fact that, she has all these different hacks and capabilities and this is better. I think Freya could defeat Gná, but I think if it's 1v1s, right, Gná can beat Kratos. I think there's an argument she could, right? I think Freya can beat Kratos. It'd be a very hard fight. And I think Gná could beat Freya, but there's an argument it would be a very hard fight. Intro Kratos is Kratos after Ragnarok. He said to be that. He said to do all this stuff. And I think after every equipment, every hacks, every hypothetical shit you can give him in Ragnarok would allow him to be stronger than both of them, to be fair. Especially taking in the hypothetical of the thing that he does to Valhalla. This man literally broke open a conception. Again, we're talking about scaling to scaling to scaling. So that's the point there. Odin, God Ragnarok, I still think in 1v1s is absolutely way stronger. I mean, the fact that Odin is said to be the epiphysis of power and, the Norse pantheon is fucking insane. The fact that he's able to just one-shot Thor, one-shot different people, he has magic out the buck, he's very crazy. He defeated a conceptually multiversal plane of existence, motherfucker. He's gargantuan and, hail and different records of plane. His magic, expertise, skill, craft, wrecking ball, different shit is just beyond a lot of them. So, yeah, I'm not going to lie. I don't really think one-on-one a lot of what they can do would best them. I think if Freya didn't come in with prep time and, a person didn't do this and do that, they would get bodied. I mean, Odin is just top dog. Odin is top dog. I believe if Odin was not getting jumped by this group of fucking miscreants, he would not lose, honestly. And it's a mixed bag that there's an argument that even in the fight against Kratos, right, just two of them versus him, Odin was dominating a little bit more of the fight from what he showed in his capabilities and the fact that he was shaking up literally the whole fight. But yeah, I mean, I think a man group between Kratos, Loki, and Freya, and taking this being, all their hypothetical versions, with this being said, would reasonably, best Odin. But Tyr, I think from how he scaled to, again, a better experienced Kratos, how he was said to be the god of war of the Norse pantheon. He showcased the feats, scale, and capabilities to be beyond Odin. The fact that you think that Kratos progressively is more mentally enlightened, he has better boasts of skill, feats, he has weaponry and capabilities stacked together and all different accessibility of the Norse pantheon at his grasp. I believe that Tyr, the god of war, is in fact the arguable strongest Norse god. And the only reason why Odin put him in captivity was because, this is how long we've been recording, bro, my shit about to die, is because of the fact that he set him up or he used something that was prep timed away to put him down. There's also the fact that Tyr, right, was kind of a very mixed guy on wanting to be in prison or not, because he kind of lost interest in war. But the fact is, when he fights Kratos, he fights him at his fullest, and all his hacks and all his capabilities, and the fact that Tyr is narratively said to actually be one of the few people, like Thor, to kill Kratos, which is a big, feat, right? Yeah, I mean, I just feel like that's enough proof right there that he's better. But in Kratos should, after everything, after all the scale, after all the height, should beat Tyr and everybody else. But Ragnarok is a whole different being. Okay, Ragnarok, first of all, destroyed Asgard. Is said to be the end of the world. He is arguably possible to destroy all the nine realms. He said he was going to destroy everything before, meaning that he arguably has the power to do that. Let's see. Ragnarok is just accessible in power and could annihilate everybody here in the hit. And full power did push past Freyr's block and kill him. And Freyr only could block it once. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, yeah, I just think Ragnarok would, on a multi-form scale, fold everybody like a lawn chair. It's not even funny. Then you have Fear Zeus, who is, the conception of fear and should dwarf and like violate everybody inside and out on all concepts of fear, and the fear that plagued the box of Pandora could eat any god from the inside out, and I don't think anybody here can take that, especially what he did to God of War 3, Kratos, who was filled with hope. But Omni Boy is power of hope, Kratos. I'm done. I hope this was enough for y'all. Another long-ass tier list. I need a mental break. I'm going to sleep. I love y'all. I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Appreciate y'all for watching. Love y'all. Peace out, mommy. God now.